Hello everybody, this is the second part of lesson 1 of home finance for my essential math grade 12 students, and we're on page 5. This is example 2, and let's get started. So this question is going to be basically the same kind of question that we saw yesterday in example 1, so it's just another look at how this kind of calculation works. And give me a second here. Just about knocked over my microphone. Okay, so first thing we have to do is find the monthly payment. So let's see. The monthly payment would be, the formula is the mortgage divided by 1,000 times the table value. And you don't have to write this formula down every time. I'm just doing it so that I kind of show you what it looks like. It's the same formula again that we used back in yesterday's example. Boom, there it is. So let's see if we can use it again. All right, so the mortgage divided by 1,000. So what is the mortgage? Well, the mortgage is $80,000. So 80,000 divided by 1,000, and then times the table value. Now the table value, my guest teacher will hand out this table to you today, but if you want to have a quick look at it here, we're going to have to look up a table value for 20 years at 6.75%. So we go to the table and we look for 20 years at 6.75%. So there's 6.75%, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. There's the number we want. 20 years, 7.55. Okay, so that's the number we want. We want 7.55. So let me erase that. So back to where we were. And there we go. So the table value is 7.55. Now, as I told you yesterday, I would never in 100 years actually divide a number by 1,000 with my calculator. When it's real easy, you just have to move the decimal that's at the end of the number 3 places over. So 3 zeros here cancels 3 zeros there. If they weren't zeros, I'd just move the decimal over. It wouldn't be a big deal. And then I take my calculator and I figure out what 80 times 7.55 is. You can do that on your calculator to make sure I got this right, but I think I've got it. It's $604 for the monthly payment. Now, what if instead, this is part A, what if for part B, instead of a 20-year mortgage, what if you got a 15-year mortgage? Maybe you looked at this 604 and said, oh, we can afford to pay more than that for this mortgage, and I'd like to pay it off quicker. So 5 years quicker of less payments. So let's see what happens to the new payment. So it would be, again, MP, and this time I won't bother with the formula. We know we're using this. So it's $80,000 divided by 1,000. And this time I have to look up a new table value. So let's go back to that table. So to the table. And this time I'm in that same column, right? 6.75%. But instead of 5, 10 years, instead of 20 years, it's 5, 10, 15. There it is. It's 8.80. So $8.80. And remember, this kind of means that I'm paying $8.80 for every $1,000 of money I am borrowing from the bank to pay this mortgage. That's the way I think about it. So 880 is my new, is my new number. Come on. There we go. So 880 is my new number. 880. Again, zeros go bye-bye, zeros go bye-bye. So I'm looking at 80 times 8.80. And I'll just do that on my calculator. 80 times 8.8. And that's going to be $704. So as you can see, it's for $100 more a month, I have 5 less years of mortgage to pay for in this scenario. Now, the examples, a lot of the examples in our book are kind of small numbers for things like a mortgage. That's partly because some of these examples are from old textbooks that have been around a long time. But also it's just to keep the numbers from getting ridiculously big, and then just watching students make errors because they copy big numbers down wrong from their calculator. We want to make sure that you can procedurally do this right, and we're not really trying to trip you up with extra big numbers. Having said that, let's take a look at something a little more realistic. Yesterday we were actually looking at this mortgage calculator, this online mortgage calculator. And we talked about something that you'd see in this neighborhood quite a bit, a $500,000 house. There's more expensive houses than that in this part of town. And just how big is your mortgage payment if you really want to live in a house that big? Well, it's going to be pretty big. We saw yesterday, this was about 3,100, there it is, $3,107.49 if we walked in today and got a 5.690 interest rate for a 25-year mortgage. And check out how much over those 25 years you're paying towards interest. Almost as much as the mortgage, the house itself. Yikes. So what can you do to try to lessen that, other than, let's look for a smaller house, less expensive part of town or whatever? Well, there's some life hacks here. Reducing interest, aka a super important life hack. First of all, interest is constantly recalculated based on the current outstanding balance on the mortgage. Again, that's how compound interest works. The quicker you can lower the balance, the less interest you will pay overall. So, what if you made a larger down payment? Now, this first example here of $500,000 that we were talking about, we didn't even have a down payment listed here. But let's say that you managed to save for a few years and you actually saved up, say, $50,000. So that means I'd pay $50,000, get $50,000 of equity in the house, and we'll hit edit details here. And instead of a $500,000 mortgage, let's say it's 45 or 450,000, because we did come up with a down payment of $50,000. And we'll leave everything else the way it is. 25 years, we'll get the same interest rate. We're going to get a fixed rate. Calculate monthly payments, and check it out. My monthly payments are, well, they're not that much lower, I guess. If I were to do the math on how much lower that is, let's see, I'll use my calculator here. What was the first one again? It was $3,107.49, and I minus this number, minus $2,796.74, and I'm only saving $310.75 a month, which doesn't sound like a ton of money, but you know what? Let's look at that. If we saved on our mortgage $310.75 every month, well then times that by 12 months of the year, times that by 25, because it's a 25-year mortgage, 12 times 25, and boom, that adds up. Oh, did I do that right? Yeah, I did. I'm looking at my calculator right now. Look at how much less my interest is. Now, having said that, maybe being able to save $50,000 is something that would take you 10 years, and you can't wait 10 years to buy your big dream house. You've got 3 or 4 kids right now that need rooms and all that kind of stuff. All right, so maybe a big down payment is not what you can do. There are other things you can do. You could see if you could afford higher payments every month and shorten your amortization period. If you are, say, married or you have a partner and the two of you both make good money and it's like, well, we can afford more than $3,000 a month on our mortgage, then what you can do is you can say, all right, I'm going to go back and edit the details. I'm going to go back to it being $500,000. And this time, instead of asking for a 25-year mortgage from the bank and buying one, I'm going to buy a 20-year mortgage. And as you'll see, my payments go up fairly significantly. Yeah. So I went from, what was it again? It was $3,100. So like about $300 more a month. But did you notice this? Notice the difference in how much less interest it is? If you can't remember the number, let me go back. If I went to a 25-year mortgage, like it was originally, it was $432,000 in interest. But if I go to a 20-year mortgage, yes, I'm paying more a month, but it's almost $100,000 less interest I'm paying to the bank. So if I can afford an extra $300 a month, again, maybe I have a partner and now we both have good jobs, that would really make life a lot easier down the road. So that's something to think about. And okay, so that's 2. There's a third one here. You could, well, of course, you could shop around for lower interest rates, right? I mean, right now, Banks. It's kind of not what you'd call a buyer's market when it comes to shopping for mortgages. But certainly, a few years ago, when interest rates were lower, banks were competing with each other for business, and the rates were very, very low. They were much lower than the 5.69% we just looked at. So that may come back again. One can hope. But right now, I think shopping for a lower interest rate, unless you have a very, very good credit rating, and banks really want your business, right now is probably not the time for that, speaking here on this video in the year 2023. Increasing payment frequency, however. This one's interesting. Okay, here's how this one kind of works. Let's go back to the original that we were talking about a while ago, that original $500,000 for 25 years. There we go. Calculate. Okay, now let's remember that this is a monthly payment and there are 12 months in a year. Now, most months have 4 weeks in them, right? But not all months have 4 weeks in them. If every month had 4 weeks in it, then if you went 4 weeks times 12 months a year, you'd have 48 weeks in a year. But most of you probably know there isn't 48 weeks in a year. There's 52 weeks in a year. If, say, for example, you didn't get paid every month, you got paid every 2 weeks, and you wouldn't really notice on your mortgage so much, what you can do is you can keep this same payment, but do what's called, oh, wait a minute, I clicked the wrong place. You can keep the same payment, but do what's called accelerate your payment to a bi-weekly, so that you pay every 2 weeks. Here's how much you'd pay every 2 weeks. And if you actually go, okay, I'll take that number. I go 1553.75, and I times it by 2, right? Because biweekly means every 2 weeks. So again, if most months have 4 weeks in them, so 2 of these payments makes a monthly payment, and, oh, hang on, that didn't work. 1553.75 times 2. Notice you get the same payment basically with a 1 cent difference that we had before, right? $31.0750 a month. But again, if you're paying this biweekly, there is going to be 4 extra payments a year, because the difference between how many weeks there are in a year and how many months are in the year, it isn't exactly 4. There are some months that have a 5th week. So over the course of the year, basically you're making 4 more payments that hopefully you won't feel too much in your actual budget, because if you're especially somebody who does get paid every 2 weeks, it won't be such a big deal. It's the same payment you were planning to make. You just make it a few more times, again, about 4 more times a year. And look what that does to the mortgage. Again, it knocks, what was this, about $80,000 of interest off. And instead of a 25-year mortgage, now it's 21 years and 1 month. So it saves you nearly 4 years of mortgage payments when you're older and maybe you're quite ready to hang it up and start thinking about retiring. So, interesting that. Finally, one last way, let me go back to the original again. Go back, instead of accelerated by week, go back to monthly. There, so there's our starting point again. One other thing we can do to try to make our payments here smaller, or just maybe not even make the payment smaller, but just knock down how much interest we're paying to the bank for the privilege of borrowing their money. One last thing we can do is maybe make an extra lump sum payment when you have extra money. Some people work on jobs where they know they're going to get a Christmas bonus, let's say. So let's say that I know that I'm going to get a Christmas bonus every year, and I'm going to see my options. I'm going to make an extra payment. So let's say when it's a regular every year thing, you call it an anniversary payment. So I might try to pay off an extra 1% of my mortgage, and let's say I know I get a $500 bonus every Christmas from my employer. That's the Christmas bonus. And instead of, spending it all on something frivolous, I'm going to be smart and I'm going to put it towards my mortgage. And I repeat that, I do that every year for 20 years. Let's see what that does. Oh, I have to enter a 1%. I'm not a 0.1%. My bad. Okay, now let's apply it. And apply. Notice that that saves me $100,000 in interest for something that wasn't, you know, it was just a bonus. It was something that I wasn't going to miss because it wasn't coming out of my paycheck. So when people say, oh, we have some extra money, we're going to throw it on our mortgage, and other people go, well, that's no fun. You should go on a vacation, go to Disneyland, whatever. Well, if you are smart with your money and you're paying for a mortgage anyway, look at how much you can save. And again, remember, this was a 25-year mortgage. We knocked 5 years and 5 years and 8 months off, or no, yeah, 8 plus 4 is 12. Yeah, 5 years and 8 months off the mortgage. Wow, just for putting my Christmas bonus on it. So those are the things that could allow you to lower your mortgage. I should mention one more thing about this extra lump sum. Remember that we talked about in yesterday's class, just going back to the notes from yesterday, the difference between between a closed and an open mortgage. Now, some mortgages are so closed that they won't even let you make extra lump payments. I happen to be on the Royal Bank's thing here, and can I point out that, again, I'm not a fan or anything of Royal Bank. It just happens to be, I find, the easiest one of these calculators to use. But if I were to just go back to the original, even if it's a closed, okay, let's see, go back one. Come on, go back. Go back to where you were. And, oh, it just still wants to do this anniversary payment. Fine, I'll just get rid of the anniversary payment. Calculate. Okay, it just won't make, it won't, I guess I have to edit the anniversary payment. So undo that, and then, yeah, there we go. Now, notice it even says here with a little asterisk, assumes a closed mortgage term. So if you are going to get one of the products from the Royal Bank, you have to ask, well, if this is a closed mortgage, can I, even under a closed mortgage, make once-a-year payments? The Royal Bank usually allows you to do that up to 10% of your yearly mortgage payments. Other banks have different rules, and again, it might depend on which type of mortgage you buy. But anyway, it's something to explore. If you are thinking about your household budget and thinking about how much you have to pay to live in your house, you definitely should be considering these options and asking yourself, can I afford them? Will it be okay if I start making a little less money? If I start making more money, what happens? All of these are the things you got to think about when you're doing mortgages. Okay, it's time for you to do some work now after these 2 little lessons here. So the first thing you're going to work on today for the rest of class is worksheet 2A. So remember, this is the notes booklet. I also handed you a workbook that looked like this. And for some reason, it's at the very end of the booklet. Let me go to the beginning. There we go. It doesn't have a title or anything. It just says worksheet 2A. So 2A is our first one. So there's only 3 questions on it. It's got parts. And you just use the formulas that we gave you. Some of the formulas involve, you know, it's interest equals principal rate time, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the mortgage monthly payment. And you try these questions based on your notes. If you finish that today, see my guest teacher, and they will give you an extra practice sheet with 8 little questions. And this one's a little more varied. And this is from an old textbook, so yeah, all of these mortgages are very, very low. Good grief, a $68,000 mortgage nowadays wouldn't buy you a closet. But you get the idea. The important thing is that you're practicing the calculations and practicing how to read these questions and know which formula you got to use and how to get the right answer. This has an answer key on the blog. I didn't bother photocopying it for you. I figured everybody could just easily get to the blog and say, here, there's the answer key for that. The Home Finance Workbook doesn't have an answer key either. I will post an answer key to this worksheet a little later on this evening when I make one. So there we go. So keep your eye on here. But actually, by the time you see this video in class, the answer key will probably be popped up here someplace. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your class, and good luck on the worksheets. Bye-bye.